Hey yoga fam, Jessie here. Today we're gonna stretch. We're gonna move a little and then we're gonna lie down. So I was thinking some quad stretching, some hip stretching, and some side body stretching. Sound good? By the way, I'm Jessie. If we've never practiced before, hello. My pronouns are she and they. Um, yeah, let's get started. You're probably going to need some props, a couple of blocks, a bolster, some blankets. If you don't have those things nearby, feel free to pause the vid and grab it or make do with what you got. We're going to start in child's pose. So we're going to bring our toes together, knees wide apart. Sit your hips towards your heels and walk your arms out in front of you. Give yourself a couple of deep, full breaths all the way in. All the way out. And walk your hands over to the left a little bit. Press your palms, fingers, knuckles into the floor and reach your hips away from your hands. Deep breath. And then walk back through the middle and over to the right. Press down, reach back. Deep breath. And come back up through center. You're going to lift your chest and shoulders, sit back on your heels. We're going to tip over to one side. So left hand to the floor, right arm up. Keep your hips low, lean over. And then switch. I'm not feeling very talkative right now. I don't know if that makes it like a bad time to make a video, but I felt like moving. So if I'm not as descriptive as normal, I apologize. If you're like, oh my God, I loved it, you didn't talk as much, you're welcome. We're going to roll our wrists out next. So just some circles with your wrists. Go this way and that way. You could flick your fingers like you were getting water off your hands. You can flick towards the front of the mat or down to the floor. You could try out side to side or up towards the ceiling. If your hands and forearms are getting tired, good job, it's working. And then go ahead and shake it out a little bit. Come back forward to hands and knees. We're going to swing the right foot off of the edge of our mat to the right like a kickstand. We're going to step the left foot back and spin your heel flat on the floor. Right hand stays, left arm lifts. Little modified gate pose, Pargasana. Push your left foot down into the floor. See if you can use that to reach your top arm up and over. Ooh. And then come back down and switch sides when you're ready. And then when you're satisfied with that, come back through hands and knees. Step one foot back at a time for a plank pose. So shoulders over wrists, hips in line with shoulders, knees up or down. And then lift your hips back into the air, soften your knees, soften your head and neck. Downward facing dog. A couple of big full breaths there. Feel free to pedal out through your knees, bending one at a time. You could drop your opposite heel back for a little calf stretch. And then take lots of little steps forward all the way up to the front of the mat. Spoiler alert, we're not going to stay there very long. So when you get there, take a couple of breaths in a forward fold And then just as slowly as you walked your feet to your hands, walk your feet back out to down dog. Going back might be infinitely weirder than going forward. So it's not you, it's what we're doing. Uh-huh. And then when you get back to down dog, take a couple of breaths there. This time, we're going to walk our hands nice and slow back to our feet at the back edge of the mat. Again, when you get there, just a couple of deep, full breaths. And then walk it back out. We're going to do this 1 or 2 more times. It kind of depends on how fast or slow you go. But we're just walking every little step of the way up, and then back, and then back, and then up. This is to warm up the backs of our legs. It's to give us a little present moment experience. Like, it's kind of hard to focus on anything but this, even though it's not that hard to do, I feel like. It just kind of takes like a little more focus than we think it will. Stay with your breath. Stay at your pace. Feel free to pause anywhere that feels good. Maybe one more in each direction. And then the next time you get into downward facing dog, take a few breaths there. And then come down to hands and knees. And sit back in child's pose, or just sit back on your heels for what my teacher Amy likes to call upward facing child's pose. It's like something I really like. Okay. We are going to bring our right foot forward for a Anjaneyasana quad stretch. So you may wish to cushion your back knee with a blanket or a towel or like a little foam pad. Help yourself. While we're there, we're going to stretch our shoulders. So interlace your hands behind your back or grab your forearms with your hands, whatever works better for you. Roll your shoulders open. Sit your hips down and breathe. See if you can lean into your back leg. For the last couple of breaths here, feel free to release your arms, maybe even lift them up. And then exhale, hands down around your front leg. Shift your hips over your back knee and scoot your front heel forward so that you can lift your toes in a runner's stretch. Ardha Hanumanasana. Try to get your spine long even as you stretch your leg. Lift your chest and shoulders. Rebend your front knee. Hands come inside your front foot so that when you lift your back leg, you can spin your toes and walk yourself around into a wide leg forward fold. Prasarita Padottanasana. And then lift yourself back up. This time, walk your hands around to the back edge of the mat. Wrestle with your blanket like I am. And then come on up into Anjaneyasana with the left leg forward. This should be your second side. So again, option 2, interlace your hands behind your back. Hug your forearms, widen your collarbones, and sit your hips down. Deep, full breath. For the last couple of breaths here, you are welcome to lift your arms as high up in the air as they want to go. And then hands come down around your front foot. Shift your hips over your back knee. Scoot your front foot forward so that you can lift your toes and forward fold over your leg. Lift your chest, rebend your front knee, lift the back leg so that you can spin around, another wide leg forward fold. And this time we'll take a twist. We're actually going to take 2 twists because why not? We're going to keep the right hand down. We're going to bring the left hand to your low back or sacrum. I have my palm down and my fingers pointing away from my head. If that's not a great position for you, find one that works. But if that does work, stick with that. Press down through the outer edges of your legs to keep your hips level, and then see if you can lengthen your spine and open your chest, like you were trying to get more space from the center of your sternum out to your collarbones. And then forward fold. Second side, left hand stays down, right hand comes to your low back. Rotate, keep your legs rooting down. So we're trying to get the stretch to happen more from the middle of your back up, as opposed to your hips shifting. One more deep breath, and release. Walk your hands forward a little. Reach your left arm underneath your right one. Grab a hold of your right leg somewhere on the outer edge. So ankle, calf, thigh. From there, walk your top arm, that's my right arm, forward. And then see if you can peek up and under your right armpit as you twist under your body. Option to bend your left knee a little. Oh, that'll add some juice. And then go ahead and release. Forward fold. Second side. Take your time. So reaching under for the opposite leg, crawling the top arm out, and then seeing if you can look up towards like the ceiling underneath your armpit. Oh, if you bend the opposite leg, it'll just be more. So if you don't need more, don't worry about it. And then unwind. And walk yourself around to the front edge of your mat. Step your back foot forward. Bring your feet about as wide apart as the mat, side to side. Bend your knees and sit your hips back for a squat. So let's talk about that a little bit more. One option would be keeping your elbows on the tops of your thighs for support, especially if your knees don't love to squat so deep. Another option would be rolling a blanket or towel to put under your heels to give you a little extra support. And yet another option, one of my personal favorites, would be sticking a block under your butt so that your hips can open, but there isn't as much pressure in your joints. Always a plus. Wherever you are, you want your toes and knees to be going in the same direction. So if your knees are going wider than your toes, or if your toes are going wider than your knees, see what you can do about that. We want the opening to come from the hip, not the foot. So if your feet are way out, but your knees are way in, consider that you're not getting a deeper opening. There's the talkative I was looking for. Ugh. I like to push my elbows into my legs and then hug my legs back onto my elbows to get a little extra traction in the outer hips. Some of you know me personally, and even if you don't, you might know that I roller skate, and um, it's a sport, and I just did a real sweaty roller skate workout with one of my teachers, and my hips really need it. So I'm staying in the squat a little longer. If you're ready to come out of it, you can take a forward fold. You could let your butt just come to the ground. We're coming to the ground anyways next. Or you could add a little twist. So you could make a kickstand with one arm inside of your leg. Ooh, and then lift and open your opposite arm up. Ha ha! One more deep breath, and then release. Second side. Kickstand your right arm, lift your top arm, whichever arm it is. I don't think I said lefts and rights before. And then come on back through. Get out of there however you want to. Forward folding, maybe grabbing your arms and swaying a little bit. And then we're coming back into a child's pose. So back where we started, toes together, knees apart. You may decide now you want a blanket, even if you didn't before. That's me. And breathe. Check in with your breath. And see if you can exhale out more air than you take in. And go ahead, walk yourself up to hands and knees for a twist. We are going to keep the left hand down, lift your right arm up, open the front of your chest, and then thread the needle. Reach your right arm underneath the left one, right side of your head and shoulder come to the floor. Come up onto your left fingertips. Oh, deep breath. See if you can keep your hips level. So your pelvis is really mobile, and we want to get more mobility in the thoracic and upper back, like kind of like around your rib cage and shoulder blades. So the more the hips move, the less your upper body will move. So see if you can down through your legs. And let the opening come from like your shoulder blades hugging together. And then release. Switch sides when you're ready. Right arm lifts. Open through the front of the chest. And then, did I just do this side? Yes. You do your second side, whichever it is. Lift up and open. Thread the needle. And breathe. And then unwind. We are going to bring the right leg forward for a pigeon pose. Ekapada Rajakapatasana prep, as a matter of fact. I like to have a blanket under my hip when they're tight, sometimes even when they're not tight. Um, if you have a preferred way to do pigeon, if this version is too much for your knees, you can come into a seated pigeon like this, with your bottom knee bent or extended. So, like, it is never worth hurting your knees to stretch your hips. And as a matter of fact, it won't stretch your hips. So, if that's you, if you feel like your knees are the limitation, your hips just need a little more support to get into that shape. Otherwise, if pigeon is a go for you, you're going to have your shin up towards the front of the mat. You're going to have your knee wider than your hip. I am of the opinion that your shin and foot should be a natural extension of the knee, up until a point. If you know what that point is, do whatever you want with your leg, doll. If you're not sure, keep it tucked a little more. We're going to start upright. I promise we'll do the lay down version, but we're starting lifted. As a matter of fact, those blocks you've got nearby, if you've got them, you might want to use to help get more vertical through the spine and torso. So pelvis, we're trying to posteriorly tilt it. So the anterior and posterior tilt of your pelvis is a whole other conversation. See, all we have to do is start talking about like anatomy or alignment, and I start talking a mile a minute. Doesn't matter unless you want it to. Either way, we're sitting up tall. From here, you can stay put if this is a good stretch for you. Many humans very much enjoy folding forward here. I like to make the distinction that they are two different poses. So, not interchangeable, right? Like they do different things. This one's more of a forward fold. The other version is more of a back bend. So go ahead, take a few breaths where you ended up. When you're ready, you can walk yourself back up. Option to add more quad stretch by reaching back for your bent knee, foot. Bend your back knee. There it is. Lift your foot. Maybe you reach back with your hand, with your elbow. Maybe you lift up. Try to keep everything squaring to the front of the mat. And then eventually release. Then you can step back to hands and knees, down dog. I like to shake my leg out a little bit before it goes weight bearing after that deep external rotation. And then we'll come into the second side. So go ahead and adjust your props. Maybe the second side needs something different than the first side. I promise you, your body will not be angry if you listen to it. Your brain might be angry. But like, I think when I was first practicing yoga, I was under the self-imposed impression that I had to do everything the same. That if I didn't stay in the pose for the same amount of time on both sides, if I didn't do the same variation on both sides, that I was like missing something. And if that's you, if you relate to that, I want to encourage you to ask yourself why you think that. Yikes. Why do we think that? It is very possible, if not probable, that your legs are different side to side. And so if we are truly meeting ourselves where we are on the yoga mat, then it should be a la carte, right? Maybe you had a surgery on one leg and it has different needs. You're going to get deeper into your practice, into your body, into your stretch when you acknowledge what those needs are, instead of just trying to force your body to fit something that it might never fit. So again, fold forward if you want, stay upright if you'd prefer, take a few more breaths. And then as you walk yourself upright, option to add another quad stretch here by bending the back knee and reaching back for your foot with your hand, or your elbow or forearm or whatever. And then release. Crawl your way out of there. Oh, shake it out a little bit. And then come on down, seated. Swing your legs around towards the front of the mat. All right, we're going to take just a couple more stretches and then we're going to lay the fuck down. I swear here, I apologize if you didn't know that about me. I try to keep it like classy, but I'm not that classy. So, anyways, we're going to lay the fuck down in just a minute here. Go ahead and if you'd like to sit up on some height, often that can help with your anterior and posterior pelvic tilt. So the more neutral, the long story short on that is that the more neutral your pelvis is, the more of a stretch and the more stability you'll have access to in like the lower and upper chain of the body. So, nerd alert. Legs out long. We're going to cross the right ankle over the left knee, a little figure 4, seated pigeon. If this is a redo for you, hell yeah, you get another pigeon. See if you can just let your legs soften. Cross your foot all the way over so that it comes to the floor outside of your long leg. You can grab around the front of your shin. Lift your chest. So if your back is curling behind you, see if you can sit more upright. Maybe more height would help. And then either by holding your knee, hooking your elbow, or crossing outside of your gym jam, we're going to twist. So your back arm is a support. We want to get taller here. So don't worry about like how deep you twist. Think about sitting up tall, like you were going to like get so tall you were going to leave your spine. Keep both feet active and flexed. If it's okay for your neck, you can peek over your back shoulder. And then exhale, look forward. Unwind your upper body. And then we're going to keep the top leg bent, but we're going to bring it inside the extended leg for Janu Shirshasana. One arm to either side of the long leg, and we fold. You can stay very upright here and get just as deep of a pose. So my body was like, go for it. Yours might not. So just that reminder that like your experience of yourself is the most important thing to find on the yoga mat. Walk yourself up. Extend both legs out in front of you. Give them a little shaky shake. And then second side. So we'll cross left ankle over the right thigh. Remember that thing we talked about with sides being different? It's still true. So just go at your own pace. Stay with your body. Try not to force anything. And then slide your ankle over so that your foot comes to the ground. Interlace your hands around your front leg or hold on to it. And then rotate this way. I'm going to the left. If you are too, that means that your right forearm, elbow, hand grabs your left knee and your left hand makes a kickstand behind you. Try to sit up tall. Again, if it's okay for your neck, feel free to look back behind you, but only if it adds something. And then look forward, unwind. Bring your bent left leg inside of the right thigh, one arm to either side of the right leg, and then crawl yourself forward in Janu. Walk yourself up. All right, shake out your legs. We got one more in us. Well, it's technically two because there's sides. We're going to do double pigeon. So, double pigeon is like this figure four that we were just doing, only the bottom leg is also folded. So, you're going to bend. I'm going to put my left leg down first. You want your shin to be about parallel with the front of the mat, and you want your knee to be wider than your outer hip. So if your knee is like in line with your hip, bring it out to the side more. It will give you more hip opener. From here, you're going to cross your top leg over the bottom one. And I like to let my ankle bone, it's the greater malleolus of the ankle, go beyond the thigh so that you're not stabbing your leg with your ankle bone. And you want to keep both feet flexed. So if your feet go flopsy, you lose activation in the legs, which means you don't get as much hip stretch. So keep the feet flexed. And here we are. If your bottom leg is up off the ground, put something under it, a blanket, a block, a towel. Same thing with the top leg. So I'm actually going to steal my own blanket here and turn to the side to show you. Do a little Vanna White. Show off the letters here. So, like, stuff it in. Just stuff it in. Let's see, what am I doing here? When our bodies know that the ground is nearby, there is like a neurological shift that happens. Your nervous system will stay on high alert if it thinks the body is falling. So we want to tell the legs that the ground is nearby so that your hip muscles can actually release and relax. If they think they have to hold you up and support you, there's just a limit to how much they will release subconsciously. Like, you can't will your body to do that. Unfortunately, I tried. I have gotten more hip opening over the years by like using props in this pose. And you can see like when I say I got more hip opening, you can imagine what that was like before. If your legs are totally flat to the ground and touching each other, you can fold forward. But like if your leg is in your chest like me, you don't have to go any further. And maybe my talking has distracted you a little bit. So come back to the breath. Come back to sensation. And remember, we're not supposed to ignore it. We are indeed stretching our hips in a very deep way. And the more present we can be with it, the more connected we can be to ourselves and to the universe at large. So that's nice. I know sometimes my brain prefers to disconnect. So I mention it because especially when my friend Melanie who's a yoga teacher, likes to say when things get sensory rich, a lot of times the brain goes, okay, bye. And, we're missing the point of yoga practice, of connection. So that's all. A couple more breaths. Nice and slow. I like to bring my hands back behind my hips. Unwind those leggies. You can do whatever you want with them. I enjoy a windshield wiper side to side. hmm And then when you're ready, we'll go the other way. So again, we want our knee wider than our hip. We want to cross the top ankle so that the malleolus, that bumpy bump, goes beyond your thigh, and then flex your feet. Again, props will help so that your leg knows that it can relax into something. And we breathe. So on this side, less distraction, more connection. Oh, hi, George. This is George. If you've practiced with me before, you are very familiar with him. And if this is your first time meeting him, he's a ginger, so he's full of it. He's also a very sweet boy. Come here. Hey, you help me stretch my hips? Thanks, bud. It really is the best part of like being at home practicing is that, come on, don't lick my feet. Is that I get to practice with my animals. And when I practice like on Zoom with people, I get to practice with their animals. Um, and that is something that yoga studios do not have, is everyone's pets. So I know George likes to be here. Thanks for sharing space with him. All right, couple more breaths. And then go ahead, unwind your legs. Oh, you can give them a little windshield wiper side to side. We're coming onto our back, so you could just roll back. Oh, come onto the floor. Bring your knees into your chest and rock around a little bit. Give yourself a little low back massage. If you want, you could take a twist and drop your knees either both together or one leg crossed over the body. Excuse me, George. That's my hair. If you're doing something asymmetrical, make sure you go both directions. Excuse me, George. And then come back through center. Perhaps a happy baby pose, holding your feet or legs. Just something symmetrical to end our movement portion of practice. And we're coming onto the ground for Savasana, for our final relaxation pose. So maybe you want a sweater like I do. It gets cold on the ground, so don't be afraid to get cozy. If you wanted to grab a pillow or a bolster for under your knees, that's a pro move. Or cover up with a blanket, that can be really nice. Even if it's just like, sometimes I like just over my hips like that. And then when I lie on the floor, I always like to support my head and neck with a little blanket or towel or a pillow. A couple of deep breaths in and out. And for the next few minutes, we'll just rest and breathe. Couple more deep breaths. And take a moment here on the ground to just connect again to whatever it is you connect to. Your breath, your body, your heart. GeorgeCat. Ow, George. Don't bite me. That's what I get for teasing him. Very gently stretch and move any way that feels good. You might want to roll to the side for a breath or two before you come up to seated. You might have a cat on you, so like, I don't know. I guess we're just going to figure that out, huh, George? Okay, bye, buddy. And then we'll meet up seated. Let yourself come upright. I like to bring my hands stacked over my heart at the end of class a lot of the time. I don't know why. It just feels good. It feels like I get to take care of myself just a little bit more for the last couple minutes here. Wherever your hands are, wherever you are, big breath in. Big breath all the way out. Thank you all so much for sharing your practice today, for connecting to whatever it is you connect to, and for, tolerating my antics as well as my furry friends' antics here. I hope to see you soon. Let me know if you have any questions. Hail yourselves, yogis. Have an awesome rest of your day. Say bye, George.